Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boosted Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of June the 9th to June the 15th. Now, before we do any type of recap, breakdown, or anything along these lines, I got another announcement for everybody. This is the final days of the Gemini season BOGO special. It's not like specials that I've done in the past where I do something for an entire month. This is not like that. This is specific to Gemini season. We started it at the beginning of Gemini season and it will end not this coming Friday, but next week, Friday. So, final little reminders that if you want to capitalize on the BOGO special, all you have to do is go to the website, www.thespirituallyboujee.com, go to astrological services, and look for the Gemini season BOGO special. You're getting two 90-minute sessions for the price of one. It is the best deal I will do all year. I'm telling you, you should capitalize on it. Now, whenever you do book these, I always suggest you book them about 3 weeks, a month or so apart, so that way we can, have a gap in between each one. This is a great way to get things scheduled out to prepare you for the upcoming Mercury retrograde, the next eclipse season, how some of the stuff is going to start to roll out throughout the rest of the summer. Capitalize on this special because, again, we're in the final days of it. This is how we celebrate my season. This week is my birthday week, so quite literally, go and take advantage of this special while I'm running it. Now, moving along. I have done some local events. We did Day of Sage over the weekend at a local facility known as Energetics. Starting this week, I'm also going to be doing things with Booker's Bar. This is going to be here in the Tulsa, Broken Arrow area, where we're going to start doing Witchy Wednesdays for people that want to have an excuse to come out and, again, meet me in person, get individual readings, whether it's an astrology reading or a tarot reading. It doesn't really matter. I am doing additional events, and this week I have at least two. That's the main one that I wanted to go ahead and announce this week. Aside from that, after this week, we're going back into the travel-esque type of events. OKC is going to be next weekend, June 21st and 22nd. And then June 28th, the weekend afterwards, I will be in Denton, Texas for the Oddities event. So again, we have additional events coming up and a couple more where I'm going to be traveling again. So if you are wanting, again, an excuse to come see me in person, it's either the local stuff, I've got stuff going on and I post it on my personal Facebook page all the time, or there are the bigger events where I'm going to start traveling that are going to take off the second half of this month. OKC, June 21st and 22nd. And then again, June 28th is going to be that Oddities event in Texas. So there's that. Okay. We're going to get into this week. But before we can really focus on this week, there is a dynamic as a part of what we were talking about last week that's setting the stage. And what happened on Sunday was there was a conjunction between Mercury and Jupiter. Now, for some people, this was an actual physical decision, conversation, something that got communicated as to the next part, the next plan, something that is going to roll out. For other people, this was a mental energy. This was clarity. This is downloads. This was something up of here that it just kind of like, it felt like a green light, even though nobody confirmed a green light. A lot of us can feel the momentum that we've been starting to build for the last few weeks. And this week has a lot to it, especially whenever it comes to Monday. Monday is a lot. And if we go into Monday, not having made some big decision the day before, not having had something communicated, not having signed off on anything, if you didn't actually do anything the day before, you might be getting the rollout of decisions going into Monday, because there's a lot of transits going into Monday. And the biggest one of all is Jupiter is going to arrive in Cancer, where he is in his exaltation. He is in a very profound, supported, caring place. It exudes a certain type of energy that just makes Jupiter feel much more solid and profound. But Cancer is a cardinal sign, and it is the start of something. Over the course of the entire week, we will be building between a square, 90-degree angles, so a square, from Saturn in Aries to Jupiter in Cancer. And there is a big energy that speaks to something beginning now while simultaneously closing out prior vibrations. Now, why am I saying that? Because this is the third square between Saturn and Jupiter. One, two, three. One, two, three. We're here. The last two occurred in 2024. The first one was last summer during the August Mercury retrograde. Hot mess vibration. It was right at the start of that gauntlet obstacle course situations all the way through. The second one occurred around Christmas, specifically Christmas Eve. And there was something that spoke to how people in positions of power was going to be making changes, because a lot of this energy spoke to the mutable signs. And mutable signs are changing signs. Pisces and Gemini are changeable. But now Saturn has moved. And on top of that, now Jupiter is going to move. The actions of people in positions of authority, the bosses, judges, government officials, higher forms of authority, their versions of decisions, people that are in charge, CEOs, bosses, managers, they are making decisions. Some people over the course of the weekend, others over the course of this week, that are going to impact the new normal vibration on a multitude of levels. And I cannot escape one clear thing that keeps ringing in my ears. I'm going to describe this now and not so much in the weekly part, but we're building to this square all week. And that means there's going to be a series of things that happen that are going to impact the masses. Why do I say that? Jupiter a lot of times can be the doctor, the guru, the teacher, people that give us support, people that give us hope, people that give us a certain vibration of feeling seen, understood, teaches us something, gives us guidance in a lot of different ways. Other ways Jupiter can be coming through is wealth and prosperity. Therefore, money. There can be a lot of things tied to money. But other sides of Jupiter can be hope and masses. And whenever it comes to the vibration of this week, what I cannot escape is I feel like there's something about the end of this week, whenever the Saturn-Jupiter square goes exact, that will impact the entire collective. Everybody's going to be talking. Everybody's going to be buzzing. Everybody's going to be dealing with something as a collective, just as much as we will see the finite situations, decisions, turning points, setting up stage, putting something new into the equation, just as much as we start in our personal lives. Now, whenever it comes to the beginning of this, I want to put a little bit of bigger focus in regards to pay attention to what's going on with people in positions of authority. Pay attention to the bosses. Pay attention to the new policies and the new rules that are coming through that have already been decided on, but not necessarily decided on by you. Pay attention to the information that has recently come out and how its ripple effect is starting to impact people and the masses and their faith and the way that they see things and the things that they believe. Because there's still a dynamic of some type of news or information that is going to come through this week or next week. Human effect. The Saturn-Jupiter square goes exact on Sunday, but the human effect is building to it all this week. We will still be in it all of next week. So human effect there. There will be things that roll out on a multitude of levels, whether that is big, real world, new world order, government level, whether that is corporation CEO level, whether that is citywide government levels, and yada, yada, yada. You can see what I mean? Like, there's levels to everything, because we can see the big stuff in the news, but you might be dealing with a fight with a city. Who knows? but a shift that puts something new into effect over this week and next week. Now, whenever I go through the weekly part of the transits, I'm going to stay a lot more honed in on just like how we can start to look for this as individuals. But there is something that has been very glaring to me ever since I looked at the first Saturn Jupiter square, and that is this impacts the collective. It impacts everybody. So be aware of some of the changes that roll out this week, the announcement that roll out this week, that people in positions of authority will believe they know exactly what they're doing. The problem is a lot of people that tend to be in positions of authority that are full of ego like to go with do as I say and not as I do. They want you to follow rules. They want you to listen to what they say, but the rules do not apply to them. And if that is the mentality, do as I say and not as I do, that is really going to be a dynamic for the rest of the summer as to how people will react, how people will respond, how people will run their mouths and what they will say and their opinion. And there is a dynamic shift to this week and next week for the collective. And it cannot be ignored. I've tried. I've tried to, I see it. I see the pattern. So it's going to be a good week to watch the news. Let's be real. A lot of the decisions of this week for certain people, they are going to cause frustration. Some will cause riots. Some will cause violence. Some will cause pickets, boycotts. Are we seeing the boycotts this week? Some, yeah. But the first round, the first ones can have a response to them that lead to bigger things. The decisions of this week, depending on how the responses are accepted and worked with, can lead to how people as a collective, the masses, start to react, move forward, and push for a certain round of change. Now, this round of change will be the reaction. It will be a response because too much has happened. Now, how are we going to see some of that in our individual lives? Some of us are going to be finally making the decision that we're going to break away from certain companies. Certain people are going to be let go. They're going to get the final notice that moving forward, this direction, that direction, you see it, you can feel it. And some of you kind of know it's coming. And that's what the mentality of someone else making the decision. But not everybody is waiting on the boss to fire us. Others are waiting on approval. And this is going to be a mixed vibration week for some people, because for some people, it will speak to something coming to a close. Jupiter will change signs. We actually have a full moon in Jupiter's sign. But before he changes signs, that means we have to wrap up something from the previous area, from the previous dynamic. Something has to come to a close to allow for the new to begin, to allow for that new to finally take off. Some of us, we've been in the new for a while. We made that plunge through the water and very quickly knew how we could get to shore, going back to some of the references I said in the month ahead forecast. But others, you've been floating, you've been waiting. You saw the bear, the bear on the creek, and you decided to stay put, thinking we will weather the storm. Not everybody is going to be able to weather the storm. And sometimes floating downriver means currents can pull us back under. We can find ourselves resubmerging. Not by choice, but because of the decisions of others. Others are going to finally find themselves downstream just a little bit. And they're going to see the clearing. They're going to see a landing. They're going to see something that helps them get out of the water and find solid land again. And again, some of the decisions of this week can be the approval. It can be the full green light of the something new. Some of you have been very hesitant for change, and this is why I'm warning of the potential of the weight of this week. Weight is in heaviness now. Others, you've already been full steam ahead. All gas, no brakes. And some of the decisions of this week, it's like it's giving you the approval that you're on the right trajectory, that you can really kick something up a notch. You can really take something forward. You can express yourself in a bigger way, in a different way, in a more calm way for some, in a more excitable way for others. And there is excitement to this week, just as much as there is the risk. And I'm just going to call it that. I don't need to rehash everything. Now, why am I saying is there is the potential of both risk or excitement? Because of the other transit that occurs simultaneous to the Saturn-Jupiter square. And that is the square between Uranus and Mars. Now, Uranus and Mars had a conjunction last summer. It was their conjunction in mid-July that started the gauntlet. It's what started it, not the Saturn-Jupiter stuff. It was Mars and Uranus. And for those that need little reminders, that was the weekend that there was an attempt on President Trump, the first one. That was that weekend. It was the ignition, that transit, that energy, that vibration. It was the ignition. It was the light. It was the unexpected frustration and vibration. That was their last conjunction in Taurus. What happened last summer? The square that we go through at the end of this week will be their last transit, their last dynamic between Uranus and Taurus and wherever Mars we want to talk about. It doesn't matter if it's another opposition, a trine, a square, it does not matter. Moving forward, the vibration between those two is over until the next time Uranus goes into Taurus. That's a good 75 to 80 years away. I'm just rounding the numbers now. We're going to have some time. So their square also speaks to a closeout just as much as Saturn and Jupiter. Now, I know people will be like, what the hell? Whenever it comes to Mars, Mars is the god of war. It is our action. It is our response. It is the way we fight. It is our passion. It is our desires. And for some people, an exciting green light can allow for certain actions to charge ahead. And it can lead to more things being spoken about, advertised, worked through in a multitude of ways. And that would be the more exciting, positive vibration that would follow Mars' square to Uranus. But for the other side, Mars' square with Uranus can also have to do with risk, unexpected fights, fires, bombings, big stuff, heavy stuff, not fun stuff. Notice how I'm not sugarcoating anything. That can be terrifying. So whenever it comes to the vibration towards the end of the week, if it was just Saturn and Jupiter, I feel like a lot of things would be like full steam ahead, green light, and in a much lighter dynamic. But because of the other, I can't speak to that. And I have to be very clear that there is a risk just as much as there can be excitement. And I'm using the word risk. I don't know why I'm stuck on risk, but that's the word I'm stuck on. There's a hazard. There's danger. There's the potential of fights. There's the potential of frustration. There's the potential of, again, the pickets, the riots, the boycotts, that type of thing. it can be violent. And if you put together the dynamics of where we are at this month, that's not a good thing. Because I mean, certain people that are not in control of their emotions, how can create bigger risks that again can impact the collective. Bosses that don't know what they're doing, people that are in positions of power that are just pure narcissists, people that only care about the bottom line and the dollar versus the people. And we will see a reflection of that very dominantly throughout parts of this week and going into next week. It's not just one day. I spoke about this week in regards to what's going on in the month ahead forecast. And I specifically said June 8th through June 25th. That will be a big shift. And the decisions, the commitments, the things that we do in this time frame will directly impact the changes that we make in the Mercury retrograde. The changes of that Mercury retrograde will directly impact eclipse season all the way through. This is the flick of the domino this week. This energy. It's going to be fun. Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving forward, I'm going to keep it to the mundane examples as best as possible. I just need to be very clear that I feel like something very big on the, collective happening this week. But moving forward, we're going to stick to just like the most mundane examples possible. Now, June the 9th, Monday, the moon is going to be in Scorpio in the overnight hours. Once we get into the daytime hours, the moon will move into Sagittarius. Right now, we're focused on the moon in Scorpio. Between midnight and 2 a.m. Central Standard Time, Mars is going to go through a square with the moon. Now, Mars is hosting the moon. So a lot of this can be like an empowerment, a confidence, a decision, an arrival towards something that speaks to direction of action. And that's the way I want to say this right now, direction of action. Moving forward, we're going to do this. Moving forward, we're going to do this. Starting tomorrow, we're going to do this. This can mean the arrival of disruptive energy. It's not necessarily coming through at midnight. For some people, it is, and this can be tense. But since the moon is in Mars' sign, this can be excitable. This can be a lot more confident. This can have a boost in the energy versus something negative. Now, sometimes when the moon is in Scorpio, we can have those deep-seated hidden emotions that need to come to light. And this can actually be a push for someone to tell something that's going on below the surface. Is that likely to happen around midnight? Absolutely. Can we have something that kind of triggers us into saying something? Absolutely. But all in all, this is kind of a clear energy that speaks to, again, some of the direction and the decisions from Sunday, because it's happening so quickly on Monday. Now, we're going to keep this going. Between 5:40 and 5:51 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this at 5:30, Saturn is going to square Mercury. Now, remember, Sunday, Mercury made a conjunction to Jupiter and immediately changed signs and went into Cancer. This commitment, whatever was decided upon, whatever was committed to, whatever we confirmed, whatever downloads we had going through Sunday, for many people is going to lead to a decision, but not everybody is going to know the decision up front. And some of us, whenever it comes to Monday morning, we're going to hear the decision, confirmation of the decision. And for some people, it will be unexpected. Why am I saying this? I'm going to go ahead and bump this to 6:30 just so I can include the next part a little bit clearer. Saturn is still in the square to Mercury, so we're still talking about this, but we're adding one extra element, and that is between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., the moon in Scorpio is going to hit this opposition to Uranus. Remember, we end the week with a Uranus square to Mars. The moon is in Mars' sign. Foreshadowing. Hey, yeah, foreshadowing. Saturn square to Mercury can be a foreshadowing. The moon's opposition to Uranus can be a foreshadowing. One of the things I said last week is that once the moon went into Scorpio, and that happened on Saturday, that specifically fixed signs, but a lot of people beyond just fixed signs could be having arrivals, meeting new people, having something new come through, something new that could be supportive, that gives a blessing, that gives information, that has some type of extra dynamic. This can still mean an arrival. This can still mean something new. Not all of us had our new decisions over the weekend. And especially if like some of this is in your like your career houses or something like that, you might not know until you go back to work on Monday. And for some people, the email that you're getting first thing in the morning, the phone call you're getting first thing in the morning, the situations that are unfolding first thing in the morning, happy Monday, is going to be something very unexpected because, again, the moon is hitting that opposition to Uranus. And again, for some people, this early morning of Monday, it is a foreshadowing to the rest of the week. So clue into that. Clue into that. Okay, moving along. After the moon's opposition to Uranus, the moon is going to go void. So it's not like that we don't have the ability to do a lot of things. It's just there's going to be a transition in the vibration. At 9:56 a.m., the moon is going to go into Sagittarius. Now, once the moon is in Sagittarius, this is going to start Monday morning. We will stay in until Wednesday afternoon. Whenever it comes to the moon in Sag, as soon as the moon enters Sag, we are in full moon vibration, even though the full moon is not perfecting yet. When the moon enters Sagittarius, Jupiter is wrapping up Gemini. And some parts of Monday can speak to a completion. It can speak to something ending. It can speak to something being released and let go of. We are still in that square between Saturn and Mercury. Jupiter is wrapping up its trip in Mercury's sign once the moon goes into Jupiter. There can be an ending, a cleansing, a clearing, a releasing, a letting go, just as much as there can be an approval, an arrival of something or someone new. Some people will have the endings. Other people will have the arrival. Other people will be having news and decision. Other people will be telling someone off. Yeah. But the moon in Sag, it's a fire sign. People are going to either feel very, very fiery or very, very hopeful. But the very first part of the moon in Sagittarius can speak to completions. After Jupiter goes into Cancer, which does happen on Monday, it's just later in the day on Monday. After that part of the switch, it will be less about completions and more about the new and the new dynamics and the new arrival and the new hope and the new support and the new lessons and the new. Okay, let's get back into transits. All right. The moon is now in Sagittarius. Now, upon the moon going into Sagittarius, the first thing it is going to do is start a trine with Saturn. Now, this is actually going to go the most exact between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. But the other thing that's going to happen simultaneously, so I'm going to put this at 12:30, is while the moon in Jupiter's sign is in that trine, trines or triangles, fire to fire, passion to passion, desire to desire, moon in mutable sign, therefore changeable sign, aspecting Saturn in that cardinal shit starting sign, because that's what I call the cardinal signs. Y'all are instigators, is happening simultaneous to Pluto and its square to Venus. So I got Pluto 3 degrees 31 minutes. Here's Venus 3 degrees 32 minutes. So right after it went exact. It actually went exact between 11:59 and 12:22. It's going to be a real interesting lunch hour for a lot of people, because this, for us here in the States, for a lot of us, this is happening like right in that lunch hour time frame. And some of the news that comes through, some of the information that comes through, some of the decisions that come through, not everybody is going to agree with. In fact, for some people, it is going to trigger fear. It is going to trigger an insecurity. Pluto has to do with Hades. This is Hades, god of the underworld. It can have to do with fear. It can have to do with those hidden fears and power struggle dynamics. Pluto is in Saturn's sign. Saturn is one of the rulers of Aquarius. Our understanding of something done by a person in a position of authority. whoever is taking responsibility of something moving forward, whatever this dynamic is. You can be talking to an elder and trigger an insecurity. You can have something happen around an elder and it brings up a past fear all of a sudden. That could be the negative. The more positive could be you talk to an elder, you talk to a person in a position of authority, you hear the decision that they have made, and you let them know whether you support it or not. You support this change. The thing about Pluto being retrograde in all of this is his aspect is withdrawing. So we're more likely to either, if it's going to be something that pushes something new, it has to do with like a past situation coming back to the forefront. And again, parts of this week is closing out stuff that goes all the way back to last summer. So the past situation can be real, but it can also have support towards the new, towards that dynamic, towards the judgment, towards the responsibility, towards how something was handled. Now, some of us have new authority figures in our lives, and those new authority figures are the ones that are making certain decisions. And some people are going to make a decision that, again, we don't necessarily agree with. I need people to be prepared for both spectrums when it comes to Monday. Some people are going to be great with the guidance and the term and the new direction and that new beginning. Other people are not. You're going to know where you fall very quickly. Oh, we're going to want margaritas at lunch. There you go. Okay. Right after the moon's trine to Saturn, Pluto's square to Venus. The other thing about Pluto stuff is it can also have to do with plumbing, and this can be a solution around plumbing issues. This can also be repairs, blah, blah, blah. That's mundane. I got to keep bringing up the Pluto things because I've literally had the fight with the city lately. So, like, it hit me hard. Okay. When the moon gets to this mid-afternoon time frame, so between 1 and 3 p.m., it's going to hit a trine to Neptune. So here's the moon, 2 degrees, 17 minutes. Here is Neptune. We're just past the exact trine, but whenever we go through this vibration, there can be something that speaks to that, something that is not clear, something that feels false, something that feels unreal, surreal, something that instigates a level of confusion as to, like, what do we do from here? They did this, people are gone, people are fired, this is going on now. What next? I don't know. And this can literally speak to, we can have decisions in the morning time that by the afternoon we're like, and what now? What do we do now? I don't know. We got to wait. We got to wait for something to come through. We got to wait for an arrival. We got to wait because I don't know. That can also be a theme to the afternoon. And I do mean specific to the afternoon as we continue. At 4:03 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to bump this to 4:30, Jupiter goes into Cancer. So again, what I said at the beginning of the moon in Sagittarius, that the first little bit of the moon in Sag could feel like a completion because Jupiter was wrapping up Gemini. But then after we get through the afternoon and Jupiter arrives in Cancer, then it's like the new beginning vibration. Are we all going to feel like sunshine and rainbows in this new beginning? Absolutely not. That is not going to be something that I'm going to promise anybody. I still feel like people are going to be in the wave of confusion because as we go through the afternoon, we still have a strong Neptune vibration going on, even with the arrival of Jupiter into Cancer. So now we're going to keep this going. We're going to get this to roughly around 5:30 because that's going to be the closest for everybody. Between 4 and 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to make a sextile to Pluto. At the same time, Neptune is going to go through its exact square to Mercury. So we have, again, that square, that 90-degree angle. We have another aspect to Pluto that speaks to, parts of the triggers, parts of the fears, parts of the frustration, parts of the plumbing issues. All forms of plumbing issues or stuff that's been going on behind the scenes, below the surface, that is now arriving. It's now coming through for some people. It's now being understood differently. It's now impacting people differently. Neptune square to Mercury can still be confusion, confused about what to do next, confused about the decisions, confused about how something can go through. For other people, if it is not confusion, it is inspiration. It's excitement and inspiration of like, I can do this and this and this, and this can be how I overcome it, and this can be how I fix this, and this is how I can make it go. And it can be an idea of manifestation, but there can also be a lot of just very dominant confusion as we go through the rest of the day based off of how things went the 24 hours before. So parts of June 8th and especially the morning of June 9th. Who's going to feel the decisions most of all? It is going to be the cardinal signs, and it is going to be the fixed signs. So cardinal signs: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn risings. Fixed signs: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius risings. Mutable signs: you're the support, you're the cheerleader, you're the messenger. You're not necessarily the one being deeply impacted, but that doesn't mean you don't feel blindsided by some of the changes, just to be clear. Okay. Moving along. After Mercury square to with Neptune, after the sextile between Moon and Pluto, we're not doing anything else throughout the rest of the day. So this vibration speaks to, we end the day in some level of confusion, lack of clarity, something that has really like got our minds racing that, again, we can't get through clearly. There is the potential of some hope if we're going through more positive energy with Jupiter going into Cancer, of something is finally going to take off and something is finally going to move forward. You're going to know where you're at and how you feel. I personally feel like this is going to go well for myself, but whenever it comes to everybody else, I cannot guarantee that and I cannot promise it. So there's the reality of that. Now, on Tuesday, going into June 10th now, there is only one direct transit, and it happens just after midnight. And that is going to be between Chiron and Mars. So I've got Chiron, 26 degrees, 5 minutes. Here's Mars, 26 degrees, 5 minutes. This is the most exact from 1:58 a.m. to 2:40 a.m. Chiron is the wounded healer. How something has hurt us and the action we have to take now. How a disruption has created a wound and what we need to do now. How a wound is feeding a desire. Chiron is in the higher authority, but Chiron is in Mars' sign. So it's like, because you are so angry, you're going to react. You're going to take something forward. Because you have been so hurt, you're going to get revenge. You're going to be a little petty. You're going to do something about it. Now, that energy is building all day on Monday. It is the most exact on Tuesday. And parts of Tuesday can be, what does it take to react? What does it take to be petty? What does it take to heal a situation? What does it take to find a solution? Now, again, there are no other direct transits to Tuesday. The moon is going to be in Sagittarius all day long. And whenever it comes to Tuesday, this will be the first full day of Jupiter in Cancer while the moon is in Sagittarius. And while we're building to the full moon is not going to go exact until Wednesday. So I'm making us aware we're still in full moon vibration all day long. There's still something in the vibration that speaks to either something that is bringing hope and support, or other people, it is what is going to be the new long-term impact of how we got into this new normal. For some people, it's going to be negative. For other people, it's going to be positive. For some people, it is going to have solutions. It is going to be ideas to healing. It is going to be ideas to how we overcome and how we fix things. But there's so much of the vibration of the full moon that is still going to be active on Tuesday, June the 10th, even though we're not in the full moon at that moment. When does the full moon happen? It happens on the 11th, specifically at 2:42 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this now at 2:30. The first thing that we deal with after we get into Wednesday is the actual full moon. So it's perfecting in those overnight hours. So the human effect is some of us are dealing with full moon stuff on Tuesday. Others of us are going to deal with it on Wednesday. And considering there's more transits to Wednesday, human effect Wednesday whenever it's exact. Okay. So we're in the full moon's vibration. The moon will hit its opposition to the sun. It will be felt the most exact between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m. Some people are going to have a hard time sleeping. For some people, it's going to be hopeful excitement. I'm like, oh, there's so much wonder. There's so much going on. I'm so glad I got this approved. I'm so hopeful that it's going to go well, that it's going to be easy, that it's going to go however we're desiring it to go. For other people, it is going to be like, I don't know what just happened. I don't know what to do now. And we need to allow for certain things to kind of unravel throughout the rest of the week so we can see how things unfold naturally to get a better idea. But you can still be restless, full moon vibration. Warn the people that are working in the nursing field because, again, Jupiter just went into Cancer. Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. And there can be something around doctors, either during the full moon or in the days around the full moon, that something's going to have to start up with treatments and that level of things dealing with the wounds and how we overcome, how the actions move from here. Okay, moving along. Full moon vibration. Now, after the full moon perfects, there isn't really going to be a whole lot going on until we get into the actual daytime. And what I explain next is going to be over the course of the afternoon. That's going to be felt the most exact human effect between noon and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we got three things that are going to happen kind of simultaneously. But for some people, it's like one thing after another. So there's that. I'm going to bump this to 2:30 because that's going to give us the most exact for all three. So first things first, between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m., the moon in Sagittarius is going to hit a trine to Chiron. Now, again, we just had the Chiron Mars trine on Tuesday. This is reactivating it. This is giving more insight to it. This is giving more access to either what wound has fed a desire or how something has hurt and our reactions to the pain. For some people, it would be that. For other people, it's going to be the actions we are taking to overcome a past dynamic, a past struggle, a past trigger. There's a multitude of layers of how this can kind of come through. But the moon is going to hit its trine to Chiron between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Simultaneously at 2:31 p.m., so I'm not moving it. That's why I said I was putting it at this time. 2:31 to 2:55, Venus, 5 degrees 39 minutes, is going to hit a sextile with Mercury, 5 minutes 38, or 5 degrees 38 minutes. So we can see this is just about exact. Venus is in her home sign. Venus is in that stable Taurus, exuding comfort energy, giving a discussion, giving idea, talking to someone about their emotions and how they are feeling right now, talking about somebody about what their plan will be to overcome and to fix something, how we heal something, where we go from here. There is guidance between Venus and Mercury simultaneously. So the third transit going on over the course of the afternoon is Mars is also going to go through that trine with the moon. Now, this is felt the most exact between 2 and 4 p.m. So that like the downloads for a lot of the intuitive people between that 2 and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So kind of adjust for your personal time zone if you need to. There can be a lot of guidance, a lot of conversations, a lot of hope, a lot of reaction, a lot of action, a lot of direction fueling us as individuals. It can fuel the collective too. I'm not going to pretend it won't, but I'm focused on individuals now. Fueling, like, this is how I fix it. This is how I work through it. This is what I do now. This is how it benefits me. This is how I fix all of those things. Like it fuels us in some way, very passionate, fiery energy. This can be super supportive for a lot of people, but it can also create a mentality. Here's this next part of what steps we have to take next to be productive. Now, are we getting that mentality all at once? No, but it can inspire. It can inspire and take us through something over the course of the day that, again, we're just taking a lot of action. We're feeling really hopeful. When we get into the evening time at 8:55 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Capricorn. Now, the moon in Capricorn is being hosted by Saturn in Aries. There are actions that need to be done. There are results that are very, very necessary. There's a vibration that speaks to if we do these things now, it will set us up for success. It will help us connect with other people. It will help us in regards to a bounty for in so many ways. But there is a direction that comes through about how we need to be productive and the actions we are taking to be productive. Once the moon goes into Capricorn, this will be the first time we have the moon in Capricorn while Saturn is in Aries, the very first one. There is direction, there is guidance, there are things about the responsibilities that we must take. And a lot of the people will have to deal with that next form of responsibility based off whatever was either brought to the forefront during the full moon in Sag or the completion of whatever happened right going into the full moon in Sag. Why am I saying that? Because the very first thing the moon is going to do in Capricorn is hit an opposition to Jupiter. Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius. So whatever came through in that full moon's vibration, we immediately have to take responsibility. We immediately have to be productive. We immediately have to do some steps as soon as the moon goes into Capricorn. That's going to start Wednesday evening. It will continue through Thursday and Friday. So let's get back into the transits, keep that going. So again, the moon's going to move in at 8:55 p.m. Central Standard Time. Here's the moon in Capricorn. And the first thing the moon is going to do is hit that opposition to Jupiter. Here's another little headliner thing. This is another little foreshadowing transit. For some people, whatever's happening over the course of this week is going to be like two big things, two or three big things simultaneously. For others, it's one big vibration that leads to another. For a lot of other people, it's going to be like a series of small little things that create frustration or that need to be taken care of all at once. It really depends on where it's at in regards to your personal chart. But that moon is in Saturn's sign, but it just left Jupiter's sign, and it hits that opposition to Jupiter. Over the course of the rest of this week, we are building to the exact square between Saturn and Jupiter. Again, the moon is hosting that Jupiter. Jupiter is in the moon sign, but the moon is in Saturn's sign. There is foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. Pay attention to what's going on in the energy. Pay attention to what's going on in your personal lives. Pay attention to the decisions and the conversations once we go through all of Wednesday. Where have we arrived? What are we dealing with? Keeping that going. The moon's opposition to Jupiter is going to be felt between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. Between 10 p.m. and midnight, so just bump this a few more hours, the moon in Saturn's sign hits a square to Saturn. Moon 1 degrees 20 minutes. Here's a Saturn 1 degrees 8 minutes. So we're just past the exact. It was exact closer to 11 p.m. This is the action. This is my hope. This is my desire of the responsibility that's being had. The questioning of the authority figure that needs to be addressed because something else has arrived, something else has happened. Now I need to talk to you. Now I need to hear from you. Now I need to know what's going on. Now I need to take these actions because of what you did. This is my response. Because I got the approval, this is the actions that I need to do. This is my response. Because you did something stupid, this is all the corrections that I need to do. This is my response. See how I'm doing that right now? Pay attention to how that energy is unfolding because there's a productiveness. We got to be productive and busy, and we're going to be taking some actions more than normal while the moon is going through Capricorn. This will be a very different moon in Capricorn vibration than we've dealt with in a very long time. It won't even be anything like when Pluto was in Capricorn. It's to be very, very different. And it can be supercharged for some people. And again, foreshadowing. Moving along. We're going to get into the 12th. We're going to get into Thursday. Now, whenever it comes to Thursday, there's not a whole lot going on. The first transit is going to happen right after midnight. And that is whenever the moon is going to go through its square to Neptune. That's going to be felt between midnight and 2 a.m. So even though we know we need to be productive, there's some part of us that's just like, but I can't do it at midnight. I can't do everything right now. But it's like our minds go to spinning of all the things that we need to do, and we start thinking of things, or we go into like a block situation of just like, okay, I know I need to do it, but I don't even know how to start right now. Well, it's midnight. We don't need to start right now. I know, but I would like to like put a list together or something like that. You don't need to put a list together right now. This is not whenever we need to do the list. Now, for other people, we are going to have a reaction in the sense of like, I can't even believe this is happening. I can't even believe this is true. I think they're lying. I think it's bullshit. What is going on? And there could be something here that speaks to that level of confusion again as to whether something is real or true or not, because sometimes Neptune can have to do with those fallacies, the lies, the fraud, the deception. Some of you might be wrestling with the fact between Wednesday night going into Thursday that you think your boss didn't just make a bad decision, that he lied, that somebody in a position of power lied, or they made some type of decision with unclear vision, not knowing what they were doing, or it's just that you don't understand what their vision is. Both can be right simultaneously. Okay. Our minds will be spinning. We're going to have some confusion. As we go through the rest of the overnight, we might be able to finally calm down and get some sleep, but I mean it just that way. Now, when we get into the early morning, this is going to go the most exact. We've got two that are going to happen consecutively, and that's the best way I can describe it. So I'm going to bump this to 10:30 because this is going to kind of encompass both. Between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a trine with Venus, Earth to Earth. Productive, stable, taking some type of responsible decisions to work on the aesthetic of something, to make something feel supported, to make something feel pretty, look pretty. Moon trine Venus simultaneously. Between 10 a.m. and noon, the moon in Capricorn is going to hit this opposition to Mercury. We need to talk about the ruling, the filing, the judgment, the decisions, the arrivals of the last few days. We need to talk about some of the things that have been said. We need to talk about the things that have been said and how it is making other people feel, whether that is positive or negative. And we need to take responsible actions in our decisions, knowing that some of our decisions has probably brought up some emotional stuff for some people. Mercury now in Cancer. This opposition can have more than one party involved because we do have that reactivation between Venus and Mercury whenever the moon goes through that trine with Venus. Their actual sextile between Mercury and Venus was actually the day before. So again, there can be something about the recent decisions, the recent support, the recent situations that we literally just talked about the day before that are now impacting more than one person here. We had a conversation and we think that this is the right way to go moving forward. This is our decision. This is how something is going to go. There is something about the communication, the decision, the purchases, the appearance, the forms, the filing, the documents, the communication, the arrival, the transportation. I'm thinking of all the mercurial stuff, how that has impacted the responsible party or the responsible decision or the person that feels like they were the one that was judged. I'm trying to think of the way this can go positive or negative. It's going to set a tone, it's going to set a mood, and it is either going to give guidance again as to how much more productive we are going to be and the rest of the actions that we take moving forward, because the moon's going to be in Capricorn all day long. So, but whenever it comes to the transits, these decisions, this communication, this delivery, this part of it can either lead to additional parties coming in, or it'll lead to the steps we take moving forward. And it can be a little bit of both, because sometimes the steps forward requires an additional party, just to be clear. But the moon's hitting that opposition to Mercury and the trine to Venus between 8:30 a.m. and noon, 12 p.m. It's going to be a busy morning. And then afterwards, it's just grinding. It's grinding. There's a hustle mentality. We're moving. We're being productive. We're taking things on. We're getting things handled. We're getting things sorted. We're trying to make things feel like the action that we are taking is worth something. Like it's a very motivated and again, productive vibration all throughout the rest of the day. Now we're getting into the 13th. The moon is still going to be in Capricorn all day long. We're still going to be in that hustle mentality. We're going to be trying to be productive. We're trying to be grounded. We're trying to get things going. We are still building a Saturn Jupiter square all weekend. And now, once we get into Friday, we're really starting to feel that square between Uranus and Mars building. Because as we get into Friday, these two are a degree apart. So, some of us, once Friday starts to hit, we can feel the tension in the air. We can feel something going on. We can feel an excitement. We can feel an action. Some of us, the productive energy that we are doing is literally to feed into those actions and that excitement and that part of the vibration. Some of us are literally having to get stuff ready and prepared for the event, for the wedding, for the trip, whatever. Okay, moving along. The moon's going to be in Capricorn all day long. Our one and only transit happens between 10 p.m. and midnight. And that is going to be whenever the moon, 25 degrees, 59 minutes, hits a square to Chiron. Here's Chiron 2614. This goes exact closer to 11 p.m., but I always give a good 2-hour window of an hour before and an hour afterwards. That's where we're at right here. The actions that we have taken, the preparation that we have taken, all the things that we have done have either been so how we can heal a situation, moon square Chiron. It is how we face a situation, moon square Chiron, how we face the wound that has fueled part of the action of this week, how we get a solution underway based off of, again, how this week has gone down, or the responsible way that we can handle somebody going through the pain, the wound, a trauma. Some of us are going to be the person that has to take responsibility for the wounds that we've caused in others. And that can be a very mundane way of dealing with this. Like it's Friday night and you're trying just to have like a normal, chill, weekend at home, just trying to have an easy night. And then we get in those deep-seated conversations of the past about our elders or somebody from before. And like, that really hurt me when he did that, when you did that, when this happened, when that went down. And there can be this need to express an anger, a frustration, something still kind of hitting below the surface regarding a past wound. Some of us might be in a position where we say something to somebody and we create a new wound. Be aware of like the conversations and how they're going Friday night. Again, Saturn square to Jupiter, still building all day Friday. The square between Uranus and Mars, building all day Friday, going into Saturday. They all go exact on Sunday. But some of the buildup can be why those things are coming to the surface, why we need to talk about the old wounds, why we need to talk about the solutions, what have you. Okay, moving along. After the moon square to Chiron, we're getting into the 14th. Now, the moon's going to be in Capricorn all night. So some of us might still be trying to do a couple of things overnight to like feel productive. Most of us, by the time we get into the overnight hours of Friday going into Saturday, we're done being productive. We're done trying to be responsible. We just need to know that our focus is going to be a lot more loud and pronounced as we go through the day on Saturday. Now, we have one more transit to the moon in Capricorn. It's going to go the most exact between 3 and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. And that is whenever the moon in Capricorn is going to hit this trine to Uranus. Some of us are going to have to get up unexpectedly in the overnight hours. Some of us are going to wake up early, human effect now, on Saturday because of some level of excitement, something that's going on, something again happening unexpectedly, getting some type of exciting communication that is going to lead to further action. Because again, Uranus is building into that square to Mars, but it can also lead to what we start to voice as we go through the day on Saturday. Because right after the moon goes through a trine to Uranus at 6:01 a.m., so I'm going to bump this to 6:30, the moon goes into Uranus's sign. The moon goes into Aquarius. Now, what I said in the beginning of this is that a lot of the energy at the end of the week, specifically Saturday, Sunday's whenever it's all the most exact, but Saturday's whenever it kind of, okay. When the moon goes into Aquarius, Aquarius represents people, groups of people, community, humanity. While the moon is going through Aquarius, the two rulers of Aquarius, Uranus and Saturn, are going to go through very heavy transits. Uranus is going to go through its square to Mars. Saturn is going to go through its square to Jupiter. That comes down to there could be a lot of actions, desires, risk, explosive levels of energy, things with people in positions of authority and their judgment and how it impacts the masses. And it can be read in more than one level, more than one way. When the moon goes into Aquarius, in some ways, there's going to be a stubborn energy. In other ways, there's going to be a very loud, pronounced energy that impacts a lot of people. And whatever comes through in the big picture collective sense, it's not going to be hidden. In many ways, for many people, it will be seen very, very publicly. It's going to be an intense weekend for some people. For other people, it's going to be an exciting new way of connecting to people, connecting to the masses of how we are seen in society. Please note how I'm saying there could be risk just as much as there can be excitement. It can go either way once the moon goes into Aquarius, but it is going to be loud no matter what. Okay, moving on. Keep it going. Now, here's the moon in Aquarius. Now, whenever the moon goes into Aquarius, it's not doing anything immediately. It's building all morning to its actual conjunction to Pluto. That is going to be felt the most exact between 11:30 and 1:30 p.m. So I got this now at 12:30 here. It is just about exact. Here's the moon's conjunction to Pluto. The plumbing issues, the most mundane situation. Somebody from the past that instigates fear, that instigates trauma, that instigates frustration, that instigates a power struggle. Positive, running into someone in public that has had massive changes, going somewhere that has been transformed into something new, whether it is a temporary transformation or a long-term physical transformation that can be up in the air because we've had so many other things going on. That part can be up in the air. Some people are going to go to a party and be like, man, I never knew you could do this much decoration and just change the whole facade of the place. That's crazy. But the other side of that can be you can be out in public, make a turn, and run into someone that triggers insecurity, frustration, and fear. Please understand you need to be prepared for both. A lot more people, I feel like this is going to be something that speaks to, again, a bigger public vibration. But if you decided next weekend you're just going to stay home, then stay home. And maybe not tune into social media too much, but you know how that goes. Anyways, I feel like a lot of people are going to be out and about. And it is Father's Day weekend. So again, I feel like a lot more people are going to be like out and about. Moving along. So the moon's going to hit its conjunction to Pluto again, right around lunchtime between 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Oh my God, I missed two things. I don't know why I did that. Dusty screwed up. We're going to go backwards. How did I do that? Between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m., the moon is going to go through a sextile to Saturn. Simultaneously, between 8:30 and 11 a.m., the moon is going to go through a sextile to Neptune. Wow, I don't even know why I did that. So for some people, we're going to be dealing with people that are in a position of power, in a position of authority, but also with that Neptune vibration, having some confusion, having some things that are not completely clear. And ultimately, we still can end up whenever that moon Pluto happens, where it's either seeing how something has transformed or again, running into someone that causes, triggers of insecurity. I must be having something personal go on in this sextile between Saturn and Neptune because I totally just blanked over both of them. I don't even know why I did that. So that's fun. No, Dusty is human. Dusty screws up sometimes. The moon sextile to Saturn, it is the moon in Saturn's sign. talking to somebody in a position of authority, talking to the person in charge, seeing how something is going to go, but also seeing that something is not clear, seeing that something has confusion tied to it, because we're also going to have the Neptune vibration, or being in a place where we just don't know how things are going to go. And then it's like, once we get to the afternoon, whenever the moon Pluto hits their conjunction, it's like, oh, it's worse than I thought. Oh, it's worse than I feared. Or it's how we overcome the fear, going off of the more positive vibration. And that sets the stage for the entire afternoon. I'm going to say it that way. Our next transit is not going to happen until right before midnight. So between 10 p.m. and midnight. I've got this now at 10:30. The moon in Aquarius is going to hit a square to Venus. A questioning about the appearance, a questioning about the aesthetic, a questioning about the taste, a questioning about the security, a questioning about the support, a conversation about all of those said things, a set of feedback, how the influence offered support, how influence of other people have offered stability, fed into the aesthetic. Did they like how it appeared? Did they like the appearance? Did they like how it tasted? Did they like the food that they tried? That type of thing. This feels like it's more about either how something was supported, or the aesthetic of something, or the taste of something. It can be a questioning of loved ones, and again, about the support, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way with everybody, considering that we are still building to Uranus is square to Mars. It's not exact yet. And Saturn square to Jupiter. This questioning can be big. It can be heavy, but it wouldn't be based off of just the moon and Venus. It's going to be more based off of the other two bigger transits that are going exact on Sunday. Speaking of Sunday, now let's get into it. Let's get into the 15th. And the only transits that are exact this day are the big ones that I have been forewarning about. The first one goes the most exact between 4:17 and 4:59 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this now at 4:30, and this is when Uranus, here you go, 2854, hits that square to Mars, 2854 of Leo. Now, Uranus is in the higher position of authority. This is the unexpected. This is the technological. This is the emails. This is the surprise. This is the excitement that inspires a disruption, forces a disruption, forces a fight, forces something harsh, because we have the Mars energy. And again, the moon is in Aquarius. It's in Uranus's sign, but Aquarius has two rulers. The second ruler is Saturn, and he's a part of this energy too. I'm going to keep this moving the screen just to that other time, and then I'm going to talk about it all kind of simultaneously. For some people, it will be two individual events that take on the vibration of the entire day. For other people, it is going to be one major theme, and maybe either creating a split or changing the dynamic or solidifying a dynamic, depending again how this is laying out in your chart and how karmically things have been unfolding for you. Between 7:32 a.m. and 11:02 a.m., we're going to go through Saturn's exact square to Jupiter. They actually start at 1 degree 17, but they move to the 1 degree 18 minutes. So you can kind of see we're right in the middle of that right here. Saturn is in the higher authority. And again, the moon is in Aquarius. It's in both Uranus and Saturn sign. People in position of authority creating unexpected vibrations that lead to disruption, that leads to tension, that leads to fights. Having somebody in a position of authority make a decision that impacts the masses of people. That's Saturn square to Jupiter. The moon again is in Aquarius. That is about community, society, masses of people. What I said in the beginning is a lot of this vibration speaks to something around the collective. Now, as individuals, for the fixed signs, this can be tension between other people and your home life, your career, or your personal decisions. And it can fuel a fire. For the cardinal signs, it can mean the arrival of a new role, a new responsibility, and how other people need to see it, whether that is on a personal level, whether that is on a professional level, whether that is about money and that level of support. For the rising signs that are either Capricorn, Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Libra, Scorpio, Aquarius, Capricorn, like these vibrations for you guys feel a lot more physical. They feel a lot more interactive. They feel a lot more aware in regards to like turning points and where we're at as individuals, turning points in where we're at with our families, turning points in our career, something along these lines. For the mutable signs, it doesn't feel as intense. So mutable signs would be Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. It doesn't feel as intense, but it doesn't mean that you're not still dealing with it in your surroundings, with people around you, seeing changes that are impacting your clients, seeing people in your family getting impacted, but not you directly. But you might have to step up and take some additional work on, or you might have to make the decision that they can't be around you anymore. Like, look, I can't deal with your toxic behavior anymore. But it's not your behavior, it's just making a decision of the slow separation, the slow break, but not necessarily like a full on head on charge first into the situation. It doesn't feel like that. For a lot of you, it doesn't. This can be the arrival that fully speaks to the levels of our new normal, just as much as it can speak to disruption. It is because of Saturn, Jupiter that I've said for a long time we are going into the new normal. But given that Uranus Mars dynamic, it can be something that, again, impacts the collective. Now, my goal is I want to see how parts of Monday roll out before I do the full moon in Sagittarius video. And when I do the full moon in Sagittarius video, what I want to do is also indicate like how that square between Saturn and Jupiter is going to play out for each individual signs, because the lunations, again, of this month, this first one this week being the full moon in Sag, both have heavy Jupiter energy. The full moon in Sag is the first lunation, but the second lunation will be a new moon in Cancer conjunct Jupiter. And that's going to happen around the 24th, 25th, and I'm doing that from memory. Whatever's going on, whatever situation, the transition and this new arrival, this new part of the beginning, this new part of the normal, it is a long time coming to slide us into this area, whether it is positive or negative. Some of us, it's a positive energy. Others, it's kind of negative. It can be risky. It can be violent. It can be accident prone. It can have tension. And I'm trying to think of all those spectrums of things that speak to something very, very unplanned and almost accidental, just as much as it can be purposeful. And doing this for the collective, the way that I do it, I don't want to get too finite as to one partial example, but I also don't. I know sometimes whenever I start talking, I trigger fear. It's my Pluto conjunct the ascendant, guys. I can't control it sometimes, but I also try to give as very wide spectrum in the vibration as I can. Whenever I do the full moon in Sagittarius video, I will do more focus of that Saturn Jupiter square in conjunction with that full moon in Sag, because again, for some people, the full moon in Sag is going to be a completion. For a lot more, it feels like the start of something new, the start of a new awareness. And Jupiter in Cancer, that should feel supportive. But that harsh square from Saturn and Neptune, that's in there too, it's not going to be supportive for everyone, or it's going to have the potential of something very misguided, something that is still not going to be very, very clear, that leads to parts of the new beginning. Now, all in all, can we work past certain fears? Absolutely. We can. Can we work past certain situations in regards to people making mistakes? We can, depending on the level of mistake, depending on the level of what's going on. You bought the wrong shoes, you can return them. That's easy. But if it's bigger stuff, and a lot of us, as we've watched Saturn get closer to Neptune, we've been seeing bigger stuff in the news. We've been seeing bigger stuff in the collective. As we go through this week and we go through this vibration, It's not all going to be small stuff. Some of it's going to be bigger stuff. And some of it is going to lead to judgments, shifts in the reality. Landing in the new normal, I think we're going to be a little bit more familiar with it next week than this week. But I feel like we're getting to decision-making vibration that, again, is going to really ignite how many of us are going to be all gas, no brake, and how many of us are going to realize we can't continue doing what we've been doing because the reactions of certain people, the way that they respond, whether it is small groups or big groups, the way that they respond, let us know whether we're doing the right thing or not. And as we continue through this month, that Saturn won't progress much more. Neither will Neptune. And little by little, there will be dynamics that follow throughout this month and next month, where certain authority figures will pull support or they're going to pull back. But I think they have to go through the harsh reality of judgment. They have to go through the reality of what the Saturn-Jupiter square represents before they do take a step back. So whatever happens this week needs to happen, has to happen. Reality checks are necessary to humble us sometimes. And parts of this week for a lot of people is going to feel like a reality check. Now, some of you, you know the decisions that you've already made. You know the decisions that have brought you here. You know what you're doing in some way. It might not be completely clear. It could just be inspired. But it could be the arrival of certain news and certain conversations that happened this week that let us know something cannot continue. Now, are we going to all pull back at once? No, that's not going to happen. That's more than likely going to be some of the stuff of the Mercury retrograde, depending on, what the actual discovery and information that comes through. But be aware of the judgments, be aware of the conversations, be aware of the actions that are coming through and how they are impacting. Some of us, we are making the decisions. We are the authority figure. We are the deluded one. And we are fueled with some idea of how something is going to go. And once we tell people, once we voice it, it's like that reaction either tells us whether we can continue or not, whether we can go through this summer all gas, no brake, or whether we have to stop what we've been doing and reverse course. There's a reality check to this week. I'm hopeful for it. I think it'll be helpful. I think it'll be very beneficial. But part of what this week is going to incur is not going to be just in your hands. The vibration is too big. The transits are too big. The outer planets do big things. So again, like I said in the beginning, I'm saying it again now, for a lot of people, whatever this week brings, whatever it entails, is going to impact the collective. It will entail how you as an individual connect with people in the collective, how you work with people moving forward, how you see yourself in society, just as much as how you see others. For some people, I really want to say be slow to react. For other people, you're just going to have to deal with the shock, depending on what unfolds and how it actually comes through. The human effect. We have to pay attention to that human effect on every level, both this week and next week. So there's that. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Again, keep me posted on things that are going on. I know a lot of you people have been doing the one-on-one bookings because of that BOGO special. Again, it is the final days. We're almost wrapped up with it. Literally next week is the last week, so I'm going to keep doing that reminder a little bit more. Hit me up with questions, hit me up with concerns. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.